But I feel
Hmm.
like this is a tremendous gift because it awakens within us discomfort. And because the human tends to want to move away from discomfort, we might actually move towards something greater, our true purpose, our mission, our dharma, whatever that might be. The cool thing about that is that a lot of us, I feel, were born into families where we were going to feel very uncomfortable for most of our lives. I don't know about you, probably many of the people that are listening to this, that you're even listening to this podcast right now, means that you at some level felt very uncomfortable with whatever was given to you. So that means that you came into this family, this society, but you came here to be a change maker. You came here to go, that doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel right in my body. That doesn't feel right in my heart. I'm going to try something different.
I love to discuss how awakening, societal conditioning allow us to consciously design our lives. That was what I read on your intake form, bro, and I would love to hear what you mean by societal conditioning and design our lives.
Yeah, we, part of being in the human body is that, we come here, we arrive here, we're brought into this world through, through the mother, through our parents. And for the first many years, you're completely useless. You're completely dependent on the support of your family. Even the idea that for all intents and purposes, your family, your parents are God to you.
Hmm.
Without them, you die. Without them, you starve. And in order for them to prepare you for this world, even though I believe that we are infinite beings that have had many lifetimes in different places of all this magic, wisdom, and experience, in this body, you need to start over again. And so that means you need to learn how to walk. We need to learn how to eat. We need to learn how to have conversations, speak the languages that you chose. There's all these different things that we need to learn. And the way that we do it, the way the human body, the human mind does it is through mimicry. We observe and we receive all of this information, all of this data. And it's like the old expression, monkey see, monkey do. And we really are these funny little mammals that we're just copying everything. And so we walk into this world. Well, I mean, we like crawl into this world and then walk, and our society conditions us. We are given these agreements, as the book The Four Agreements talks about. Nobody, you didn't choose English or whatever your native language was. It was chosen for you essentially. And then, okay, well, that's a table, that's a chair. Okay, well, that's a man, that's a woman, that's right, that's wrong. And these are all things that we need in order to just get by in this world. And there's also a lot of other agreements that we come upon, which is, the roles of men and women in society. What is justice? What is right and wrong? What is God? Does God even exist? And at some point in time, I believe all of us have the gift of really hitting up against the edges of this rigid container, this definition that's created for us. And that's where we that's where we have an option, which is either to stay in that box, which a lot of people do. There's nothing right or wrong about that. That's just a judgment concept that exists in the human mind. But there's many of us that choose something different. And oftentimes that choice, the reason that we awaken, at least it was for me, was because, well, my life got really uncomfortable. The agreements that I had come upon, hey, climb the corporate ladder, get a job, get married, all those things. At some point in time, I was just depressed and I was reaching out to all these different substances. And so for me, my awakening was a deep down feeling of dissatisfaction
Hmm.
that I did my best for a long time to numb. And so, these conditions that we're born into are such tremendous gifts, because if we actually listen to how we feel, our body, the thought patterns that are expressing in our mind, and not reject them, which is what generally most people get taught to do. It's another part of the social conditioning. Then we'll actually find that no, this isn't for me, right? It's like going to a restaurant and sitting down and trying some of the food and going, well, this is nice and I love that you brought me here. I'm glad that you like this, but it doesn't taste good to me. And if somebody
Hmm.
asks why, and you go, I don't know, it just doesn't taste good, right? Most people sit at the same table and eat the same meal that they hate over and over again for no other
Hmm.
reason than because society says so. But I feel like
Hmm.
this is a tremendous gift because it awakens within us discomfort. And because the human tends to want to move away from discomfort, we might actually move towards something greater, our true purpose, our mission, our dharma, whatever that might be. So the cool thing about that is that a lot of us, I feel, were born into families where we were going to feel very uncomfortable for most of our lives. I don't know about you, probably many of the people that are listening to this, that you're even listening to this podcast right now, means that you at some level felt very uncomfortable with whatever was given to you. So that means that you came into this family, this society, but you came here to be a change maker. You came here to go, that doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel right in my body. That doesn't feel right in my heart. I'm going to try something different. And that is a gift when we can allow ourselves to honor it, which I will say that I spent a good portion of my life completely disregarding it.
So much in that, bro. Yeah, I just want to honor that recognition of what creates our reality is essentially these belief systems, and these belief systems are really just a function of stories that we've been told over and over again by our caregivers initially, and then we went into some sort of education system where we're told exactly, this is how the world works, this is the shape of our planet, this is where we are in the solar system, and we start to take these beliefs on, and at some level it's a survival strategy as a young person. But as we start to mature, it's our responsibility to recognize those uncomfortable feelings, not as some sort of problem that we don't want to feel, but rather as important data that's pointing us in a different direction. My languaging is really around some sort of soul recognition. I've been through that uncomfortable part of my life in Johannesburg, which looked like building a business that was working in the advertising space and making money. But the uncomfortable feeling that I sat with for a large part of that was a very soft voice with a very loud, constructive consensus reality around me that this is how it is, bro. If I can get used to it, this is the thing. You're on the right track. Your business is making money. You're employing people. Just keep flowing and going. But that voice started to get louder. And as I reflect back on my journey, there's the sense that I feel like my soul came for something bigger than this. The part of me that's like, I should be doing something else. You described it as like wanting to step out of this and to evolve into something else. And yeah, I think I chose the family and the world that I came into so that I could have this some sort of awakening around this. And I'm so grateful that I took the opportunity to sit with that and to listen to that voice. And as you said, people listening to this podcast, we have it from time to time. And if you're feeling that right now, just give yourself the space to listen, because it's not a problem. It's data that's pointing you in a potentially new direction. What I want to
Yeah.
ask you on this is the second part of your statement says that allow us to consciously design our lives. So, okay, we get this, we have this uncomfortable feeling. Now what? What's the conscious design in the statement?
Yeah. Beautiful. So when we 95% of what we do, 95% of our behaviors, 95% of everything that's happening in our reality, in our body, in our mind is the domain of the subconscious or the unconscious mind, right? So subconscious below conscious perception, unconscious, what we are not conscious of, what we are not aware of consciously. Eh, and so if we think about 95% of what we're doing, our behaviors, our actions, is not something that we are aware of, we when you hear that, you need to start thinking, well, there's an opportunity for me to tap in here, because if 95% of my behaviors I'm not actually consciously choosing, then maybe I need to get in touch with that. People seem to think that they are the driver of their own car. If you just imagine yourself as the driver of the automobile is your body, and you're driving through life, through the cities, through the highways, through the countryside. we all seem to think that we're the driver, right? I make the decisions. I'm going to turn left here. I'm going to turn right here.
Hmm.
Really, when you reflect on it and you think, well, 95% of what's happening, I'm not actually aware of. I would actually say at best, you're the front passenger seat. You're not the
At
driver.
best, yeah, you might even be the spare
At
wheel in the back,
best.
not even looking at the road.
Well, but the thing is most people might feel a little defeated by that because they think, well, for example, I've helped many people quit smoking, cannabis, cigarette, vaping, all that stuff, and I use techniques where they can do it in one session, and it's really powerful. Why weren't they able to do it before? It's not because of willpower. It's not because of their conscious will or even their spiritual will. If willpower was enough, 80% of the people that smoke wouldn't smoke. I mean, studies have shown that they actually don't want to smoke. If pharmaceutical companies know this, that's why they create the drugs that they do. That's why they market the products that they do. But if just wanting it was enough, they wouldn't be out there picking up a cigarette right after their meal. They wouldn't have that immediate response because
Hmm.
they're stuck as the car's got its GPS system, it's running its automatic processes. And thank goodness, because if you had to, while we're sitting here talking, think about beating your heart, or think about healing damaged cells in your body, or think about every single breath. It's interesting because the breath actually is a on the border between, we can be consciously aware of our breath, and also we can just pass out and our body's still going to breathe, right?
Right.
It's a beautiful thing. So what I think is really interesting is that we are noticing that there's a lot of opportunities for us to there's a lot of opportunities for us to be designing our life, because if we're running into things that don't work, if we're running to experiences that aren't actually satisfying us, then instead of just continuing to run into the same obstacles over and over again, what we can do is get into the design of the GPS of the car, the software of the computer, the applications that are installed on the phone, and start to rewrite them. And then we can sit freely back in the back seat and enjoy the ride. I think most of us probably go through our lives so much trying to control everything, trying to create changes, trying to make things better, when really what we're designed to do is to sit back, set the destination, put our hands up, relax, and enjoy the view. But
Hmm.
that is definitely not what most of us are doing. And so the conscious design thing is to go take all that data that you said, all that data that we're getting through the emotions, the feelings, the discomfort, the dissatisfaction, get into the unconscious mind, rewire and reprogram. And when we're still very clearly saying, look, I want to go here. This is where I want to go. And I'm going to set my destination, but stop trying so hard and allow the car to drive for you. I mean, people are so afraid of automatic driving cars, but I will tell you that the statistics are very clear that humans suck at driving cars. Like, thank God, actually, that the unconscious mind is so good at what it does. The other day, I was totally doing a modern day, what's a modern day challenge for most people is I was texting and looking at something while driving, and a flash of the stop sign came up, and I slammed on the brakes just in time. But I didn't look out at the street and go, is there a stop sign up there? No, it showed up. There was a cue, a program, this initiator, this trigger of a program that was in me saying, you got to put your foot on the brake, otherwise we could die. And thank goodness that happened, because I could have ran straight into a truck. Fortunately, the system is designed knowing that you are generally unconscious when you're driving, and that's why the bright colors, the signs, the signs with shapes and pictures instead of words, the rumble
Hmm.
strips on the ground, those are all there to trigger unconscious processes. But if we can redesign that, we can make sure that if we have a goal that we set, well, I want to live with this much money coming in every day, you don't have to try so hard. You just set the program, and then all of a sudden somebody's going to walk by, and your unconscious mind will know that they are an opportunity, that they're somebody who needs the service or support that you provide. And then all of a sudden you'll be automatically drawn to them. You're like, oh my God, that t-shirt's really cool. I feel like I have to talk to this person. And before you know it, you're halfway into a sales pitch, and none of that was conscious. It was all absolutely automatic.
And you don't have access to that until you're choosing to let go of some of the beliefs that you have, that the goal of money that you want in your life is maybe too much, because that belief would perhaps leave you closed to that opportunity, right? There's some underlying frequency that's happening in your reality that's based on this underlying program, which is essentially built into the beliefs that we have. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's an understanding that I'll put it like this. Your body, your mind wants efficiency, right? It's going to take the most efficient route, and it's going to take the route that it knows is not going to cause you to die. The number one program, the number one, we call it the prime directive of the unconscious mind, is to keep you alive. So if the prime directive is to keep you alive, let's say that you grew up in a household where, let's say you grew up in a household where your father came home, was barely ever home, was working all day long. He always came home and he talked about this mysterious thing called money. And whenever he talked about money, you as this sweet, innocent little child who was very sensitive, who could feel all of the energy around him, who could understand the slight shifts in facial expression, the
Mm-hmm.
tone and the cadence of speech and the body posture, and knew that your father was coming home. And as soon as he started talking about money, he was stressed. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as he was stressed out, he wasn't spending time with you. Which, if he wasn't spending time with you, then you meant nothing. You were meaningless, and potentially you were in danger.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so you grew up in this household where money then in your mind equated stress, which equated danger. Then over time, your mind is going to say, well, we need to do everything in our possibility and our power to get rid of money, because we're always talking about money, and money made my father not be home. Money made my father not pay attention to me. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to experience that. Then I must get rid of money in my life. And we see this over and over again with people who get a new job. They finally get that promotion. They finally get that extra money coming in. Maybe they even get a little lottery ticket, or like my experience in 2021, where I had some crypto investments that I was intuitively guided to, blew up, and all of a sudden I had like $150,000. It took me less than a year to blow through all of that money because I had a story. That story was essentially that money's hard, money's stressful, money's painful. And then my unconscious mind took the actions. I was drawn to people, excited to create business ventures and collaborations with people with the intention of expanding my money. And then guess what happened? Well, I invested in a partnership where it was doomed to fail. I invested in a product that I was never going to follow through with. So that program was always running because my unconscious mind goes, no, 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 this is not safe. We have to get this money out of our lives. The sooner we get it out of our hands, the better. And that's why we see things like the millionaires that win through lottery tickets, and they never can hold on to their money because they didn't become a millionaire first. They were still living in a poverty mindset. They were still living with the beliefs, which is nothing more than a truth for you. It's a thought you've taken as true. And
Yes.
because you've taken it as true, your operating system goes, well, we need to check all of the experiences that are happening around us, and we need to filter out the junk because this conscious mind can only handle so much.
Right.
We're talking about, if I were to say to you, okay, there's 100% of reality around you, and your conscious mind is only getting a fraction of that. Your unconscious mind gets it all through your senses. It has to. It needs to have all that data in order to, flitch, twitch, respond, run away, be scared, whatever. What percentage do you think that you're getting of that 100%?
Consciously?
Yeah, to your conscious mind. How much data do you think you're getting out of that 100% so that you can navigate life consciously?
I think it's the similar number to what you're talking about before. It's got to be less than 5% because there's just too much stuff going on that I wouldn't be able to process. I'm on a conversation with you. There's windows around me. There's so much stuff going on. But if I can't let that stuff go, there's no ways I can be present. So I don't know the number, but I guess it's low.
Yeah, I mean, it's even lower than 5%.
I would think you're
So
1%, maybe even less. Yeah.
it is 1/1000th of a percent.
Uh huh.
Okay, so if you're getting 1/1000th of a percent of the data, like for example, um, there's so much information is not relevant right now. If I say to you, "Hey, what does it feel like to have your shirt draping upon your shoulders?" All of a sudden, you probably can feel, "Oh yeah, I've got this material on me," but it probably wasn't in your awareness before because it just didn't need to be. It wasn't urgent, right? Your body knows it's there. Your unconscious mind is aware that it's there. Now, until I said to you, hey, you need to pay attention to this, just think about that in the sense of, well, let's say you wanted to make money. Say you wanted to make $100,000 this year. Cool. It's a fantastic goal. Now, if you believe that money is bad and painful and causes distress in your family and the like, well, then if you were to walk into, let's say, a business meeting and there's 20 people there and you're pitching a presentation to offer a consulting service. Now, out of those 20 people, let's say 5 of those people are ready to buy. They're inspired by you. They need exactly what you're offering. If you are only getting 1,000th of a percent of what's coming in, and your mind is going to orient you towards your beliefs, not necessarily your goals right away, but towards your beliefs, then after the meeting breaks and everybody walks around and we're all shaking hands, if you believe that money is dangerous, I guarantee you that those 5 people, you're not going to see them. Your unconscious mind will not present them to you because it conflicts with your reality. Because if I were to walk over to you and say, let's sign a contract, here's a check right now for $20,000, your unconscious mind would know that you're in danger.
Some
So
sense of
chances
not
are
being
that you're
safe because this is what happened with my dad. This is the same story that I've confirmed in my life the whole way through. Yeah.
exactly. And then so what happens is, for all intents and purposes, in your reality, those people don't exist. But for some
They
reason, you're going to be
filtered out.
strangely attracted to the people that are going to reject you, especially if you have some serious rejection wounds. Not because your body and your mind is cruel. People will often think that their subconscious mind is like, oh man, this is so messed up. It's setting me up for failure. No, actually, if anything, it's creating all these uncomfortable situations so that you can consciously choose to change the settings. Because the unconscious mind can't change its own programs. Only your conscious mind can do that.
And that part of the being is also feeling more safe when it's right than what it is that you desire. So when I know that this is how the world works and I continually connect with people that reject me, at least that part knows that, okay, fuck, I'm safe because I know how the world works and this confirms my version of reality. Even if that 1/1000th is looking for partnership and not to be rejected, yeah, the nervous system wants to be right and safe rather than, potentially what the desire might be for success or for money or something like that. Yeah, so well articulated,
Absolutely.
bro. Thank you.
Yeah. The expression that always comes to my mind is most humans would rather choose a known hell than an unknown heaven.
Yeah, it's that. So let's parlay this conversation around beliefs into sovereignty. So there's this idea that potentially these beliefs that we have in our world, however they came into our world, whether it's from caregivers, whether it's from how we believe money should look, or relationships or healthcare should look, a lot of your work has to do with personal sovereignty. So how does our belief system shape our ability to be sovereign, and what does personal sovereignty mean to you in the work that you do?
Personal sovereignty is, well, again, it comes up to this idea that we grew up with social conditioning. We grew up to play by the rules, right? Doesn't matter whether the rules are good. It doesn't matter whether they benefit you as an individual, whether they benefit society as a whole. It's you got to play by the rules, stick to the rules. But that means that you have to give your power away. Most people don't know, and it took me really just a lot of paradigm shifting information recently, last few years, that, for example, I don't know how it is in other countries. I imagine it's very similar, but let's take it in the United States of America. We hold the United States of America in the world to this ideal of freedom. It's like we're the free world and democracy. Yeah, cool. Well, let's do a couple of myth busting things here. So number one, slavery was never truly abolished. In fact, slavery wasn't isolated just to African Americans, to slaves that came from Africa. All humans are slaves. It is actually written in our Constitution. There's the 14th Amendment, which actually defines people as citizens, which ultimately is a slave. And I don't have the exact precise details on this, but you can go and do the research on your own. There's so many rabbit holes that we could spend hours talking about it. But the idea is
Uh-huh.
that when you were born, your mother was conditioned to teach, they taught her that she needs to sign a birth certificate. Now, that birth certificate essentially creates a corporation in your name as your name. That's this all capital letters name. It's called an ens legis. And this name is essentially a business that then the state or the government owns. Now, the United States government is not actually a government, it's a business, it's a corporation. That changed in the 1800s. And since then, every single law that you're experiencing, all the things that paying taxes and all these other things are ultimately corporate code, they're commercial code. Most of the laws and the governments that are running in the world are running on the UCC, the Universal Commercial Code. So what that means is, long story short, is that everything that you own, you don't really own. The state owns it for you, and that's why you have to pay a driver's license. You have to pay for a privilege because you have inalienable human rights, but you have been taught and conditioned since birth to give those rights to some other entity, a corporation, a business, but then to receive in exchange privileges. Now, privileges are very different. So, for example, I have the Supreme Court and the Constitution have upheld that I have the right to travel in my private property. However, as soon as I start driving in an automobile or a vehicle, now that's a commercial action. That's a commercial activity, which
Let me
means
just
that
stop you there. So
yeah,
driving in a car that you own, you're able to do. But as soon as the definition of that car becomes an automobile, the rules change for you as a function of definition and law.
correct. Because the police department is not actually a governing body; they're a business, and they're getting you in contractual agreements. One of which says that when you get a driver's license and you register, regis, which is a Latin root word for king, when you give your property to the king, and then you ask for the privilege to use it, and you pay taxes or fees every year for taxes on your vehicle, then you're saying I'm going to drive in my vehicle. Well, really, what you're doing is you're traveling in your private property. And as long as you're traveling in your private property, that is a private person, as a private man or woman that's acting in the private, and this commercial company can do nothing about it. But as soon as you start using this language, boom, all of a sudden they got you because you're engaging in a contract. And so that's why police can pull you over, they can fine you, but they're not really fining you, they're fining your business, which is your name. So
Yes.
all of that is to say that when you were born, your mother gave your power away. Now, that's actually not lawful, which is why I've been engaging, and a lot of people have been engaging in these different activities. And there's many ways to skin a cat about how to claim our rights as a man or woman. And it's very important to use these words because a person is a legal term, and that is one of those things that they govern over this universal commercial code. But I'm saying, hey, look, you engaged in a contractual agreement with me when I was a baby. So I had no free will. I was not smart enough. You had not even conditioned me enough to be that
Yes.
person who could engage and give you my rights in exchange for your
Yes.
privileges.
Yes.
So that's what I've been doing. It's actually one of the reasons I've been home in the state of Arizona. And of course, there's Arizona State and the state of Arizona, which are two different things. One's a territory defined by land, one is a business.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
once we recognize that our power was given away for us, and then we have been trained to continually give our power away,
Yep.
um, then we got to go through some pretty uncomfortable awakenings. Like even the idea that I don't know if you have a homeowner, but I've never owned a home. I've had part of my programming has been to be fearful of owning a home, partially to be tied to one place for so long, even though it's a great vehicle for wealth. Um, But the word mortgage in English actually comes from the Latin root of death pledge. Mort means death, so it means a death pledge. So if you're signing something called a death pledge, then what we actually get to understand is that through the legal structures, you never own that thing. And in fact, even if you pay that off and you have the title and the deed and everything, what are you still doing? Well, most people have to pay property taxes until they die. So if you have to pay
Yes.
property taxes, do you really own it? So again, we're taught to give our power away. And I just think of the movie The Matrix, which has been, I mean, I remember when I saw that movie in 1999, and I was a young child. I was 15 years old, but something shifted in me.
Yes.
And it's because I believe that this was giving me unconscious signals of like, hey, you live in this world that's not the way that you think it is. You've got all these plugs in you, and the machine is feeding off of you.
Yep.
And I believe now it's our time to say, well, I'm tired of all these plugs stealing my energy, my life force, my God-given energy. And I'm choosing to change that. However, I work with a tool called neuro linguistic programming, NLP, very famous with guys like Tony Robbins and other fantastic teachers. Paul McKenna, who's a great NLP and hypnotherapist. Um, Neuro means nervous system and brain. Linguistic is the words that we use that shape our world. Because remember, one of the first things you got taught was language. You didn't choose it;
Right.
it chose you.
Yep.
But those words shape your reality, just like to say birth certificate or to say vehicle versus automobile. Those things are very important distinctions, not only because of a legal definition, but because they actually affect our nervous system in a different way. That's why I can say money to one person and they smile, and I can say money to another person and they immediately tense up, right? And so when we recognize that we don't actually have the power that we rightfully deserve as humans, as a man, as a woman, then we need to start challenging all of the words. We need to start challenging all of the programs. We need to start challenging all those things. The other day, I'm staying here at an Airbnb. Fascinating experience. I'm here at an Airbnb. I'm traveling with a business collaborator, and he has a service animal because he was in the military, dealt with PTSD, bipolar, all kinds of weird stuff. After that, he's since healed most of that with plants and detoxing and just health. And um, I neglected to see if this was a pets allowed home or not. And so we arrived, and as soon as I start putting the code in the door, it doesn't work because the woman who owns the property saw the dog on the camera and immediately changed the code. So she wouldn't let us
Mm-hmm.
in. Now,
Mm-hmm.
even though she's listed this as a pet free home, according to the American Disabilities Act, according to federal law, you cannot discriminate against a person who has a disability and a PTSD or a service animal, right? And there's very few
Yeah.
questions that you can ask about it. So she's yelling at us. We're clarifying things. Eventually, the company that manages this property lets us in. Well, 3 days later, she's not satisfied. She calls the sheriff's department. Sheriff's department comes in and says that we need to get out of the house. Well, as soon as that I see those uniforms walking outside, what do you think happened inside of my body?
Yeah, it's got to be contraction. You've been conditioned to be that way, right?
100%. The heart level raises. I start kind of panicking. Jonathan was, my friend was on the phone, and he is having this beautiful conversation with a woman, and they're just diving deep in this emotional conversation. I'm like, Jonathan, sheriff's office is here. And I reverted to a younger version of myself
Mm-hmm.
immediately because I
Yeah.
was taught, I was conditioned that deference, that giving my power away to someone in authority was how I stay safe,
Yep.
right? So I noticed myself panic a little bit. Well, what did I do? First thing I did, take some deep breaths. Okay, I'm consciously aware that I am not in the same control, a level control that I am right now with you. I have an anchor. It's a trigger on my body that I press and squeeze, and it actually invokes a series of emotions of calm and peacefulness. So it started to bring my body back down into a state of calm. Fascinating technology that we can use through neurolinguistic programming. And then Jonathan, opens the door, and there's a screen door, and he holds it shut, and they immediately walk up and they start talking about what's going on. Well, they tell us that we need to evict, that we need to get out of this house. And Jonathan says, okay, yeah, thank you. Well, this is a registered service animal, and there's discrimination. This feels like discrimination. And eventually they walk away. And I'm sitting there going, they didn't have a court order in their hand. They have no right to ask us to get off of this property. There's no power. But here's the thing is it doesn't matter if they actually had official power in that moment, because if we were scared enough and we left that property, then they would have won.
And you complied by
And
choice,
I
right?
would have complied, right? Because I would have voluntarily done it, because the discomfort of my body and the stress and all those things would have caused me so much panic that I would have said it's easier to just leave. Lost my deposit, lost my money, all these other things. Well, right now I'm having a conversation with Airbnb and I'm saying, look, the homeowner called the sheriff. That's discrimination. That's retaliation. That's a federal offense.
Yes.
So if I didn't know my rights, if I didn't claim my sovereignty and take a moment to calm myself and say, "Okay, we hear you. Thank you, officers. We'll speak to the Airbnb. We'll speak to the owners." Sit there and do my research, and thank goodness that artificial intelligence helps make this so much faster. I can just say,
Oh,
"Hey, this is the situation," and then everything comes up says, "No, this is a violation of your rights." Now all of a sudden, I'm the one in a position of power because I have a guest, and according to the federal law, according to the corporate law, that business, the sheriff's office, has been violating his rights. And now we are the ones that can leverage that to contract in such a way that we get penalties paid to us. Now, this takes tremendous reprogramming, wouldn't you
yeah.
think?
I love it, bro. I want to get into it because it's true. It's like we have all of this power, but it's so deeply ingrained into us. And as you said when we started this, and I want to just say how beautifully you've laid this out because it's super clear. And I know that we spoke before we got online about just how nuanced this topic is and how many rabbit holes there are and just how complicated this is. So the way you've described it has been amazing. But yeah, every single part of your nervous system, from the moment you were in the womb, in utero, your mother was already in this place of like, I'm going to bring a baby into this world and they're going to be the best version of themselves and they're going to get a job and go to school and pay taxes. And the only thing that's certain is death and taxes. Like all of this shit is fucking built into us almost at a DNA level. So the
Oh, yeah.
idea of somebody listening to this, I know the first time I heard about this stuff, some part of me was like, fuck yes, I fucking knew it. Like my rebel was like, I fucking knew this shit wasn't supposed to be like this. And then my young 6 year old, the people pleaser that wants to make everybody happy and comply because that's how I received love as a young person, is like, give it to the man in the uniform. He knows what to do, and just that I agree, bro. It requires so much work to reprogram these parts. And I've heard you say this on this podcast and also in a voice note that we had leading up to this, which is I know and I can see how much work you've done, bro. You have all of the tools and you still feel that feeling in your being when a man in a uniform knocks on the door or a cop pulls you over or something like that. Hey?
Hey, FSB crew, a quick message to say 97% of you who watch or consume this podcast are not subscribed. Subscribing to the show really supports us to be able to grow and reach more people, as well as include and improve the quality and caliber of guests that we have on this show. Our goal is to get this number down to 70%. And so if you have ever received any value from the content and conversations on this podcast, please consider subscribing. It really supports us and the work that we're doing. Now, back to the show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, as you said, it came to us programmed in the womb. One of the tools that I work with is called mental and emotional release, and it's built with, designed with NLP. Um, it is it's kind of like when somebody they use AI. ChatGPT is like a base tool, and then they create another AI program off of that. That's kind of like what this tool is. It's based and founded in the principles of neurolinguistic programming, and it uses the concept of a timeline to be able to help people to instantly, and I mean instantly, release lifetime worth of anger, fear, grief, anxiety, and limiting beliefs. And we do this using mental processes. We use the mind to change the emotions and the physical body. It's really fascinating. And it is, I mean, that fast. It's powerful how much of a transformation people can experience. And that's why in a day, I can help somebody more than 20 years of therapy can, because we have techniques that understand the link between the mind, the body, the nervous system, the conscious and the unconscious mind. Now, the fascinating thing is that if we're getting to the root of a belief that someone is holding, let's say it is the belief that money is pain, money is painful. Well, we identify where was the root of that belief. We don't identify. We just ask the unconscious mind, and it tells us. We just say, "Hey, sweet little 6-year-old boy inside of you," because the unconscious mind kind of is like a sweet little innocent child, right? It wants clear directions. You need to tell it exactly what to do. It's super enthusiastic. It's actually really magical, like all kids are until they believe that they aren't, which is fascinating. But oftentimes it'll say, "Well, the root of that is in the womb." Where you're going like, well, I didn't have an experience that traumatized me to believe that money isn't right. Well, but it doesn't matter, because if you're being made of your mother's flesh and you're woven into her nervous system, and she's out there and she's working a 9 to 5, or maybe working 3 jobs and she's barely making it by, she's a single mother, you got to be absolutely sure that that information, that data was coming into your nervous system, combined with, we now know that there's 14 generations of trauma that we can perceive expressing in your DNA. You've got 14 generations of unhealed trauma that you are currently expressing in your behaviors. And I did the math. I asked AI how many ancestors that is, just direct related ancestors, fathers, mothers, great grandfathers, etc. 32,000 humans in 14 generations. So 32,000 humans and their unresolved grief, their unresolved beliefs, their fear of getting screwed over, their fear of the man, the police, the boys in blue, whatever it is, all of that is in you. So absolutely, I can help you to unprogram that a lot in just a matter of a day. God, give me 6 weeks and I can help you transform a ton. And because we have to honor the nervous system, when those moments come through, the first thing I wanted to do when the sheriff's officers left the house is I went and I sat down and I'm like, I got to fucking figure out let's talk to AI. What are my rights? What's going on right now? I need some answers. And then I had to stop myself, because in that panic energy, I was on my computer, and all that's going to do is amplify the panic energy, right? Which means that I'm going to be perceiving the 100% of data. I'm going to get 1,000%, but it's not going to be a reality. It's going to be filtered through my state of panic, because your current emotional state is a massive filter for how you go from a 100% to 1,000%. So what I needed to do in that moment, I put my hand on my heart. I closed my eyes. That's funny. I'm feeling so much emotion about that right now. And I just took some deep breaths, and I said to myself, I am safe. I am safe. My body is safe. And I had to imagine holding my younger self and picking him up and scooping him up and holding him in my arms and saying, I am safe right now. Because if I were to continue in that panic energy, then you've got to think that, there's no time except for now. The future and the past don't really exist. They only exist inside of now. Even when we get to the future, it's now. And that means that every version of you, those younger versions of you, the awkward teenager, the rebellious teenager, the 8-year-old who's starting to feel awkward in his own skin, the 3-year-old who's just exploring the world, the 5-year-old who's panicking and stressed out because mom and dad are fighting, every one of those still exists inside of you. Not just in your mind, but in your whole being, your nervous system as well. And so that means that I had to scoop up that panicking, sweet little child and hold him and hold myself. Because in that moment, if I would have been panicking and I wouldn't have given myself that space, it would have been just the same thing as when I was a young child and I was having an emotional breakdown, or whatever my family would have labeled it or society calls it. And instead of sitting with me and holding me and saying, what's going on? I'm here. I'm listening to you. It would have been perpetuating well, you're safe. You can take your time, breathe, and there's no rush. I was perpetuating what happened with my family, which was my mom panicking and trying to find a solution, right? My dad going, oh, we got to do something about this. We got to call somebody right now. I mean, I remember one time my father, I got the wrong order from a Taco Bell. And we went home and my dad flipped. And he called the Taco Bell. I'm like, does Taco Bell have a phone? He called the Taco Bell. He wanted to drive down there and I'm just like, in that moment, there was no sitting down and going, son, are you okay? Like, is it okay that you missed your double bean burrito? Is this, but he was, if that's what I learned, then it's natural that my immediate response in the presence of these sheriff's officers, even if I'm in the right, even if I have power in that moment, would be to panic. But I needed to sit there. I'm safe. I'm safe. And that's power. To be able to be in that present moment, to hold yourself. Even the other day, I walked up to Jonathan, who's been going through this process with me, and thank God that he doesn't have PTSD like he used to when he came out of the military. He's done so much inner work as well. But I just walked up to him and I started rubbing his shoulders, and his body stopped, and he just immediately dropped. And now there was this message inside of me. There was this voice inside of me being like, that's a little gay. Now, which is funny considering I have had homosexual relationships. So if anybody is okay with that, like, it's not what I actively pursue, but I've experimented with these things in my life. So I have no judgment about it. It's just not really my thing anymore. But as soon as I was feeling that, there was this voice saying, oh, I don't know, don't do that. But oxytocin, serotonin are being produced in his brain. His nervous system is calming down. We're co-regulating. He's dropping. His muscles are releasing tension. All of a sudden, what we have been programmed against as men, especially, don't touch, don't hug, don't, what are you doing, bro? Like, what? That is actually the medicine that was so supportive in that moment. To be able to just say, hey, bro, I'm feeling a little stressed right now. Can you just give me a hug? Can you maybe rub my shoulders? And then act from that place. Make decisions from that place. Remember, who am I? What is my conscious desire? What are my goals? What is my purpose here? And then act from that place instead of from that panicked little boy. But that requires us asking for what we need, understanding neurochemistry, understanding the nervous system, understanding the inner child dynamics, understanding that we can and we get to sit down and hold that younger version of us. Then we can truly become sovereign, because the system is designed knowing that, God, in every single movie, there's police officers. There's people that are acting fearful of the police. There's guns and there's danger and there's sirens and all these things. So it's no wonder that even if I just see a cop car in the rearview mirror, my unconscious mind goes, this is definitely coming in your 1/1000%. And you need to actually start to panic a little bit, because we have to be hyper alert right now, because if we do the wrong thing, we might go to jail.
Or get
But if I
shot.
can
Yep.
take control of that, if I can remember who I am, and if I can say, hey, sweet, beautiful nervous system, hey, unconscious mind, I see you. I see you, sweet, beautiful creature. But we know we're more powerful than this. We know that officer only has power over us if we give it to him. That's why when they say something like, do you understand why I pulled you over? In English, there's a hidden magic spell in the word understand, which if you
Stand
switch it
under.
backwards is stand under, right?
Yep.
Which means that he has authority over me. So if you say something like that, you're engaging in contractual law, which means you hand them your power. And if you don't do that, if you just say simply to a police officer, I don't answer questions, they can't get you to engage in contract law, and they have no power over you. And that takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of deprogramming and reprogramming. You have to unprogram the old stuff, and then you get to program it with what you want. Because if the unconscious mind is 10 million, or I don't know what the exact number is, times more aware and observant and powerful than your conscious mind, well, what happens if you can harness your unconscious mind to guide you to exactly what you want? What if you walked into that business meeting with 20 people and you were empowered and you said that money is God's power that helps me to become more of myself? Then all of a sudden you don't see the 5 people or the 15 people that don't want your support and services. you're magnetically drawn to, and they're drawn to you, the 5 people that are ready to transform, that are ready to pay you what you're worth. Now, wouldn't that be a better way to live your life?
I love the awareness around that understanding of 14 generations and 32,000 people, so that when you are sitting in a place where you touch another man on his shoulders and you have something come through your field that sounds like homophobia, it's not even yours. There's half of 32,000 beings that have got a homophobic story in their reality that is part of who you are, that allows you to just observe it. That's like, thank you. Okay, I get it. It's not me. It doesn't make me gay to touch my mate on his shoulders, And yeah, just kudos for bringing that, because I think that awareness of recognizing that so much of what we experience, the less than like 99%, is not, it's not even ours. It came to us as a function of the world that we're in. And we don't have to fucking believe in any of it. In fact, none of it is actually universally true. It's just what is. It's just what's in our field as a function of how we've been born.
Well, and let's talk about those. Let's talk about truth, because truth is a very curious thing. I mean, I feel like somebody recently shared with me that if you're going to sit down and you're going to pray, if you're going to pray to God, which is is it Robert Donahue? I think it's Bill Donahue, maybe, is a guy who's been teaching esoteric wisdom for a long time, and he has a tremendous capacity to teach, and his ability to teach is phenomenal. And he teaches from the Bible as a mythical, metaphysical text, right? The greatest story ever told. It is truly a way to know how to be the best human that you can be. And there's so much language that we can decode. And so prayer is not just reciting a bunch of words and saying, "Oh, dear God, please give me the money that I want." It's closing your eyes, quieting your mind, going inside, and communing with the one with no distractions. It's a combination of listening, and it's using your mind to project your thoughts into the mind of God. And one of the ways that we get to know, well, one of the things that he said very clearly was, "What are you praying for?" Well, always the one thing that you can, without a doubt, pray for that will always benefit you is pray for the truth. God, show me the truth in this situation. Cut away the veils of illusion. Cut away this bullshit language and these societal conditionings and show me what is true. Now, how do you know what is truth? Well, there's a lot of different ways, but one of the things I teach my clients is, well, listen to your emotions. That's a pretty damn good indicator of what's true, because your emotions also then, so, what you thoughts you think create emotions. Emotions create neurotransmitters and hormones in your body and creates the body. Essentially, it creates the different changes in the body. Now, your emotions are a fantastic navigation system. And also, they're not always true, because you might be feeling that emotion of fear, not because of a truth, but because of a distorted manipulation that you carry in your DNA and your nervous system.
Right.
So sometimes we need to, I use human design as a fantastic system for understanding inner authority, your truth. Some people's inner authority is emotions. Some people is sacral, which is the body gut response. That's what I navigate life with. Though emotions are still valid for me. Some people need to talk their way through it. Some people just know. It's fascinating.
Yes.
And for me as a sacral response, I need to listen to what my body says. And it's usually very fast. And sometimes I need to actually give myself a little bit more time to know what my body feels. So, for example, if that man comes up to me and starts rubbing my shoulders, and I know this for a fact because I've had an aversion to men physically touching me, not just because of this homophobia thing, but because it's a, what do you want from me? What are you trying to take from me? Right? So I know that is much softer, but it still exists within me to a degree. So let's say my friend comes up to me and in that moment of panic starts to rub my shoulders. I might initially feel my body response as, "Ugh, that's not right." But then I get to go, is that my truth? Well, then he continues. I say, well, okay, I'm safe. This is a brother that I trust. We've created trust. We've built trust. Right? We've invested in that relationship, which means that I'm willing to say, okay, I'm safe, right? I'm safe. Tell my body, hey, I'm safe. It's all good. Well, then that truth starts to come out and it expresses through those neurotransmitters of serotonin and oxytocin. Now, dopamine is also a very powerful neurotransmitter, but it is not as long lasting and powerful as serotonin and oxytocin. These are the human bond, the deep love and connection, the authentic relationship kind of chemicals. And so if I allow my body to speak a little bit more, instead of, running up to a child and saying, hey, what do you want for dinner? And it goes, ah, and you go like, okay, I'm going to give him a chance to calm down and go, what are you actually craving for dinner in this moment? Well, I'm going to allow my body to calm down and go, oh, this feels magical. This feels better than most drugs, right? This is better than anything that I can smoke in an instant. So maybe that's my truth, right? And then I can start to listen to that. But that takes, again, a deprogramming, right? So there's 4 steps for change that we engage in. My NLP teacher, his name is Dr. Matt James, phenomenal teacher. He's also a kumu. He's a teacher in the Hawaiian lineage. He inherited 120 generation lineage of Hawaiian healers and teachers. Fascinating stuff. And he is as white as can be. So it's so funny that like the story of how his family came to carry this lineage is really beautiful, but another day. And he teaches that there are 4 steps for change. In order to create any change in our life, we need to essentially do 4 things. Now, it can look a lot of different ways, but any of the most effective leaders and coaches and teachers and billionaires are doing this at some level, whether they're conscious to it or not, which is step 1, unprogram the past. Step 2, program a new future. Right. Yeah. So it's like you're in the car. I'm going to delete the old destination because it's taking me to some sketchy neighborhood downtown that I don't want to go and I'm not going to feel safe. Okay. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to then program a new destination. I'm going to go to a park just outside of the city and it's going to be beautiful and peaceful. Cool. Well, step 3 is you got to take action, right? Whether that's hitting enter or getting in behind the wheel and, okay, I'm going to follow the directions that it's giving me and I'm going to drive. And now step 4 is I need to stay focused on what's working. When I see the little sprout come up from the ground, I need to look at that and go, yeah, even though that's a tiny little sprout, even though that's not the $100,000 that I want, I got $5, I got $10, right? Because that reinforces the unconscious mind. Just like if you're working with people train crows to do wild things. They're fascinating creatures.
Yeah.
And people have actually trained them to go find money. And people have made thousands and thousands of dollars or euros or pounds because they've trained crows, because when the crow shows up and gives them a little, 20 euro note, then he hands them some food. And the unconscious mind is the same way. You go, good job. Well done. Thank you for doing that. And then all of a sudden the unconscious mind, even like a little child's can be like, where's more? Like, have you ever walked with a child on a beach and they come up to you and they show you a seashell and that little kid shows you a seashell and you're like, wow, that is so cool. What's the next thing they're going to do?
Seashells all day long.
All day long. They're going to find you the next coolest thing, right?
Uh-huh.
The unconscious mind's exactly the same way. So if we can follow that, if we can unprogram that old behavior that doesn't work anymore, which NLP is a tool among others, breath work, emotional freedom technique, tapping, EMDR, there's so many. And I use a variety of them. And then we program a new future by writing out who you are in the future, tapping into what you really want, creating specific goals, and then taking action on those goals. We can actually change our neurological pathways and then start to create new neurological pathways so that the next time my friend comes up to me and offers me a shoulder rub, I'm not going to jerk, react, or panic so much. Now, maybe one of my action steps is to say, hey, Jonathan, by the way, I love you, brother. And in the future, it would be best if you ask me permission first before you approach me and touch my body. I need to set a boundary. And then he can come up and be like, hey, man, you seem a little tense. How about a shoulder rub? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And then I don't even have to have that panic response, right? So there's so many different ways that we can do that. But all of it breaks down to deprogram, reprogram, take action, focus on the results that are working for you. I'll tell you that 4th one is challenging. It can be very challenging.
Yeah.
It requires faith, I believe. Um,
And letting go of the part of you that wants the $100,000 from a base of zero. It's like going to the gym and being like, I want to improve my bench press on day one. And you don't celebrate the fact that you're going from zero. You know, you can't bench press 100 kilograms on day one. You have to go through the process of starting slowly. So it's, you know, we understand it in some areas of life, but we want relationships or money or these old beliefs to be broken down and fixed within a few moments. So yeah, I
yeah,
think faith
absolutely.
is the key there.
Yeah, faith is the key, and the good thing is that we can see if someone else has done it, you can do it too, and that's true for anything. And if you ever think like, oh yeah, well, but if I have a physical disability, cool. Go on the internet. There's hundreds of stories, if not thousands of stories of people that have physical disabilities that are doing the same thing, if not more, than people that don't have those disabilities. So that's if that's how powerful the human mind is. That is how powerful how your willpower is. Your will and intention is, I'd say, really the ultimate power tools that we have in our kit as a human, which is ultimately a infinite being that limits itself as a human for the purpose and ability to create in the human realm. It's like buying the $50 video game and the $500 PS5 and then going home and putting that in so that you can create this avatar that you can go and play in this world that's so immersive. Like we did the same thing, except the cost of coming here was forgetting who you are, forgetting your connection to the divine, forgetting all of your past memories or whatever they might be, inheriting a bunch of intergenerational bullshit, and inheriting a bunch of social conditioning, forgetting who you are. Why? Well, it's not because it's some curse. It's because it's so fascinating and exciting to remember who you are. So that's the price that we pay. And the cool thing is that if someone else can do it, you can do it too. And we talk so much about the quantum leap, and I was stuck in an addiction, especially to psychedelics, because I was hooked on this idea that if I could just smoke bufo one more time, if I could just take another dose of ayahuasca, that everything would change just so fast in my life, which there's truth to that.
Yes.
And you can deprogram and reprogram in one of those sessions, but you still need to take action. You need to go into the gym and you need to do the reps. Right?
Yep.
One of the reasons why I, in 1 year, smoked 5-MeO DMT almost 100 times, which most people, if they're ever guided to do it once, is plenty. Why I did that is because I was stuck in a loop, because I wasn't taking action. I wasn't going to the gym and being okay that I was only lifting 5 kilograms first, right? And celebrating those little wins. And a lot of that has to do with my neurotype, being neurodivergent, specifically what's labeled as ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, which is a complete horrible labeling. Again, we talk about the power of words, and that's a terrible word because we're calling you disordered. No. I love the term neurodivergent because it means that I am diverging from the main path. But I believe that neurodivergence, autistic, dyslexia, ADHD, and the like, we're here because, and I believe to a degree, we've always been here because the tribe needed the scout to go and wander off into the nature and to find new resources, new hunting grounds. Because if we stayed in the same spot, we'd get stagnant and we'd potentially die as a tribe. Now there's people in the tribe that sit there and they knit and they take care of the homes and they build the fires. And then there's the other people that can't sit still to knit and build the fire, but we're off in the trees and we're hyper vigilant and we're like open to this whole world and we can see things that other people can't. I believe that us neurodivergents, the ones that have nervous systems that are wired differently, are here to be an usher of this new era because we are so fucking uncomfortable in the world that has been constructed because of our neurochemistry, because of our things like loss aversion. I think we feel loss at a greater level. Obviously our baseline dopamine levels are lower, and so our tendency to be able to stick with something so that we can invest in those small gains that eventually create exponential gains, which that quantum leap doesn't happen in one day. It's not, I'm going to smoke DMT and then boom, I'm a whole different person. I might be able to connect to a vision of a different person of myself. I might be able to
But
let
you
go of some
still live in
body
that body.
trauma.
Uh-huh.
But I'm still, if I delete the old GPS coordinates from my automated car and it's driving on the road, if there's no new instructions, eventually it will take the old instructions and put them back in place because it needs to keep you alive. So that's why I can help you transform a lot in a day, but we also do need some integration time, because showing up to the gym, those small little wins, focusing your attention, controlling your mind, is going to actually create the quantum leap. The quantum leap doesn't happen in one day. It happens in such a way that all of a sudden, one day you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, holy shit, I'm shredded, right? Because of the little wins, because of the little gains that stacked. I mean, talk to any millionaire or billionaire and they'll talk to you about compounding interest. Same thing occurs with personal transformation and development.
How do we create a new, more inclusive world by getting rid of? I agree with you. The word disorder is just completely wrong. I think it puts a whole class of people into a space that makes them feel disempowered or not part of. And I think we need to get rid of that as quickly as possible. What's the way through? How do we
Yeah.
shift this paradigm around this? Because I see it all the time, and I think it's coming more and more into the collective conversation, and people tend to sit with ADHD as some sort of curse, where I agree with you, bro. Some of the most sharp and amazing people are the people that have got fucking gifted in areas that society doesn't know quite what to do with.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, Steve Jobs was ADHD as shit. But
Hmm.
you know, these people are visionaries because we have visual pattern recognition. We have different types of functions in our brain that allow us to see things, that allow us to envision things differently. Now, he combined it with LSD and a bunch of other things, and combined himself with somebody I don't know for sure, but Steve Wozniak, I believe, wasn't. I believe he was much more grounded and methodical, and he maybe had that more neurotypical brain. So I think number one is a recognition and of what it is, on learning your neurochemistry. Number two is a complete shift in perspective and labeling. Get rid of this language, the disorder. I mean, the what is it, the DSM-5, the diagnosis for whatever mental diseases and disorders. That whole system, that Freudian perspective that everybody's fucked up and everybody needs to go to therapy, is such bullshit. Now, we all could benefit from tools and transformation and support and being heard and things like that. But I'd prefer to work with a coach who has tools and techniques any day of the week over working with a therapist. Now, I think if we can shift the words, remember the L in NLP is linguistics, if we can change the language to more empowering, that's why ADHD is what people understand. So if I say ADHD to a person in the grocery store, random conversation, they're going to understand me. If I say neurodivergent to them, they might not understand it. Cool. So let's educate on what are better words for that. Neurodivergent for me is empowering, right? Okay, so if I learn about what it is, if I empower myself, if I reframe, which is one of the most powerful techniques that we can do, change the lens through which I'm observing the world. If I reframe this as a superpower, then I go, well, maybe I'm not meant to sit at a desk for a 9 to 5 shift. When probably I'm just scrolling and looking for cheap dopamine. Well, then I understand, how do I find better sources of dopamine? And then I understand, well, actually, if I just worked for 3 hours a day, but was very specific about how I do that, and then I go out in the world and then I allow my superpowers to again show me different things and better ideas, and then as I start to act differently with that knowledge, I think the next biggest thing is community. 100%. If you are somebody who deals with the disorder of ADHD and you're alone, or you're hanging out with friends who are neurotypical and who have a different level of baseline dopamine, and who, when they go out and drink and they spike their dopamine and then they crash the next day, they're going to return to a higher baseline. Whereas a neurodivergent person is going to crash and hit a lower baseline, and then they're going to be craving junk food, more drugs, porn, whatever it might be. You're going to get into this nasty spiral. And so if you're there alone in your home, or you're just going back and forth to work, you're going to suffer. Or if your friends are all doing things where you pay 4 times the price, then you're going to suffer tremendously. Now, if you can surround yourself with people that are like you, not just ADHD, but people that are neurodivergent, that have a different language, that are empowering, that are encouraging, that are supportive. If you're around people who are choosing to every day show up and go to the gym or do the reps on their business or whatever it might be, then well, then we become not only a whole class of empowered people, we also become exactly what this planet needs, which is the neos to stand up in the matrix and to say, this shit is not right, and I'm choosing something different. Then we become the Morpheus who walks over to the people who may or may not have similar issues, and we say, look, you've got 2 pills. Do you want to go back to sleep and keep doing that same shit over and over again, even though the truth inside of you is going to keep screaming for something? Or do you want to take this other pill and realize, yes, your birth certificate is a business that you don't own, but there is a pathway to where you can reclaim ownership. I've just done it. Now, I did that with the help of other people. I have a community call later with them because I'm going to get into community where we're all talking about the same thing and we're all empowering each other because we're all going through these like mind-numbing legal documents and all these things. But I can do that because I have a goal and a vision, which is to reclaim my power. I have a map, which is what this company I paid for, what they're giving me is a map. And then I have a community to reinforce and support me. So then I will take those actions like I had to pay $140 yesterday to publish an affidavit in the local newspaper so that I could record it at the county recorder's office. For an ADHD person, that's mind-numbing. And it's also irritating to have to pay that money. For a sovereign being who is reclaiming his power, it is simply a necessary step that a king takes in order to assert his power on the throne.
Whew, there's so much in there, man. What I'd like to just check with you before I make this promise. Are you able to share some of the links? Is this community that you're working with something that's open for other people? Do they need to have jumped through certain hoops? Like, you don't need to spend too much time on it now because I know it's such a rich topic and there's so many different rabbit holes. But yeah, are you open to sharing some links in the show notes that people that want to know more about this unraveling themselves from the corporation that they've been born into against their will? Can we put something like that in the show notes and journey more deeply with you?
Absolutely. I will definitely do that. Number one, because it's super easy, and I highly encourage people to check into it. I'll give you. I have a personal link that they can use. Fair warning: it is an affiliate link. I believe this is actually one of the best ways to spread the magic and the medicine is to help incentivize people to be able to do that. It's called thefreedompeople.org. So they're thefreedompeople.org. I will say that they are focused in United States-based processes. So for those of you that are listening internationally, you're going to have to do a little bit of research to see what happens there, because though theoretically these same processes would apply, I can't say that they're going to be able to do things for South Africa, for example. Right?
There are differences.
There's totally, but they're all. It's pretty much if it's a modern government, it's pretty much working on the same business model. It works. It has worked until now. So the freedompeople.org, you can check that out, and then please, I'll share the link with you. And I think the first step there is they have a simple video, which is just essentially a small red pill, which shows you about how you have been lied to your entire life, and that the governments and the things that you've learned are not actually what you've been taught. So, and then from there, if you learn how to prompt artificial intelligence with the right mindset, because it will defer to like, oh yeah, the government, this and no. If you say like, hey, I want you to pretend like you are a wildly rebellious, highly studied in the law, familiar with universal commercial code, understanding sovereignty, understanding statesmanship and national sovereignty and all these things, tell me what to do, then it will give you that information. Except if you don't prompt it with that, it's going to defer to or default to, you got to pay your taxes, bro.
The blue pill.
Yeah.
So, bro, what are you working on right now that you're excited about that you can share with the audience? I know this is one piece, but this is not really your main focus. What's in your world right now that's taking your life force and you've got juice for?
Yeah. Let's see. Well, the thing that has felt to me the most inspiring recently is really speaking to this neurodivergence, right? Speaking to these archetypes, these neurotypes, to help empower them, because I didn't know really until this year that I am neurodivergent. I've always had a sense that I'm a bit different, and like one of those like the Sixth Sense, or one of those movies where the big reveal happens at the end, and then all of a sudden I look back at my entire life and I go, holy shit, like I have been ADHD my entire life. It's just I worked in the restaurant business, and that was a superpower as a restaurant manager. But as a food and beverage director, or as a managing like office based employee, oh God, no, that would never work.
Wrong tool for the
Now,
job.
absolutely the wrong tool for the job. I will say that probably most people, a lot of people in the military, nursing, restaurant, bartenders, a lot of these people probably are quite neurodivergent because they just thrive in high dynamic energies. So the first thing is my next path is creating a community space for these people to come together in an empowering space where you can learn about how your mind works, whatever type of neurodivergence you have, and that we can come together and empower each other. That's something that's in the works. It's not fully brought to material plane yet. It's really much more of an energetic thing. So that's something that I'm very passionate about, simply because I feel like if we can, as teachers and guides, like you and I are, and like so many people are, like we all have the opportunity to be, if we can just share based upon the things that we've learned and the suffering that we've gone through, we can really help. I mean, if you can just fix some of your own problems, you can help potentially millions of other people, because you're not alone in this, right? You are unique. However, you're not alone. But what I recently created that has been is just a power tool is what I call the Rise and Reset program. It's designed to be a simple 7-step, small chunks of videos and reframing and limiting belief transformation techniques. Essentially, it's like a crash course in neurolinguistic programming and other tools that I created. It's a self-guided course that's available now. And that course is essentially taken the years of study that I've done in metaphysics and neurolinguistic programming, the unconscious mind, and it's there to give you the manual that you were never given in school. Because what would life have been like if you had showed up for school and they told you, this is how your mind works, this is how your nervous system works, this is how perception works? Actually, everything that you're seeing is just your unique world. It's not what's really there, but it's because of your unconscious mind and your traumas and your beliefs. What would have happened if you would have gotten that instructions manual? And then how would your life have changed? So I decided to create essentially this instructions manual in a very easy to digest format, so that you can step by step take that red pill, completely change the perspective of your world, and start to take your power back by understanding how it is that this reality actually works. It's a fusion of ancient wisdom, metaphysics, and scientifically proven data to show you that you are the creator of your own reality. And once you accept that charge, sure, you take that responsibility. And also, um, we always say with great power comes great responsibility. But I'm also like, yeah, but look at the other side too. But with great responsibility comes great power.
Exactly.
So my goal is, my desire is to help people empower themselves by really recognizing and living the truth that you are the creator of your own world. And isn't that so freeing?
I love that. I think the work that you're doing around neurodivergence touches on something that's been really dear to my heart, which is the recognition that from our wounds come our wisdom. The thing that we are working through in our incarnation is the thing that we're going to be most qualified to teach. Your experience of what you've worked through and the realizations that you've had around this languaging of how it is to be neurodivergent in this world, the tools that can support others, is the work that you should be doing. You're uniquely qualified for that, and I just want to say well done for going through that path and recognizing that, because yeah, it's something that I'm also supporting people with, which is recognizing in this world we need more of us on this healing path to be able to go out into the world and to be able to make a difference. And part of that is, first of all, recognizing what's yours to bring. And very often it's linked to the thing that most of us are trying to avoid. But once you've got that imprint of having worked through that piece and integrated it, you are uniquely qualified, unlike anybody else, to go and find more like you and support them with what you've learned. And then part of the second part of that is, okay, how do I get paid to do this so that I can actually receive energy through my business or my offer to be able to actually continue to do this work? Because if you're just out there serving people sort of from a place of martyrdom, and you can't pay your own bills and you can't get paid, broke coaches go nowhere and they help nobody. You really need to be in that place. So yeah, there's a couple pieces there, but I really like what you said there around that, because yeah, the world needs it. There's so much more of the, and I'm going to put in inverted commas, the ADHD, because I'm going to switch to talking about neurodivergence now, because the power of words really fucking matters. And yeah, thank you for not only the reframe, but for bringing your own. It's not even really a wound; it's a superpower once it's integrated. So yeah, well done, brother.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, for those coaches and healers that are out there on the path that aren't making money, been there. Let's talk, because it's just a couple of little switches that we might need to switch around in your brain. Even the added bonus, I recently learned that it is very common for people who are neurodivergent to have difficulty charging what they're worth, because we have an ingrained sense of justice. Most of us have gone through a great deal of trauma. And so it is natural for us to avoid what we might feel is taking advantage of somebody else, right? How could I possibly charge $1,000 for this coaching session, even though it is worth $10,000? Even though to the right person, it could be worth $1,000,000. And that's just one of those little gifts that we get to overcome. And that will, of course, once we pull the sword from the stone, then we get to stand more in our power.
So good, bro. I'm excited for future co-creations, bro, whether they be in person. I know we just missed each other in Guatemala. I know you have a desire to come to South Africa at some point. And yeah, I look forward to the day that our paths cross in person again. And just want to say thanks for the work that you're doing and for showing up and giving of your attention to this audience. I think there's been so much value from this. We'll include all of your links to your programs and some of the resources we spoke about inside the show notes. And yeah, anything else you want to share in parting for those that have made it all the way to the end of this really beautiful conversation?
The one thing that comes to my mind is, by the way, bonus points. If you just listen, your unconscious mind will give you the answers. So instead of me trying to think of an answer, I just allowed my unconscious mind to show me, and I had a very quick flash of exactly what it was. You can do the same thing. Just be like, "Hey, show me what is the most important thing right now," and then it will show you. So just listen. Remember, it's a servant. Now, the thing that comes to my mind right now is, a lot of us that are on this path of awakening, we get into these concepts of the chosen one, right? Like, we are the chosen ones. We're here to break these patterns. We're here to break these curses. We've been chosen by God, and there's certainly maybe some truth in that, but it can also incite some spiritual ego, and it's an old program coming up and rearing its head. It's I'm not, the work that I do is not for the faint of heart. It is not for those that are just looking to make an extra 10% in their, annual income. The work that I do is for those that are here to become leaders and to become those teachers and guides, or to improve the work they're already doing. But the chosen one is not somebody who's chosen by God, because we all were chosen by God. The chosen one is the one who chooses themselves, the one who chooses. And true sovereignty is that freedom of choice. So you are the one, just like the Matrix taught us, because you believe to be the one, because you choose to be the one. So make that choice, affirm that choice every day, watch the world transform around you.
So good, bro. Till next time. Thank you for being here. Big love.
Appreciate it. Yeah.